the first one is the mind won't even show you your tough conversations or your truth often. It'll sweep it under the carpet because we don't want things to be awkward. So that's the first challenge, is we don't even know who we've got issues with and what those conversations could look like. Secondly, if we did identify that, I don't want to feel awkward. I don't want to feel uncomfortable. We're creatures of comfort.
Hi, I'm James Taylor, business creativity and innovation keynote speaker, and this is The Creative Life, a show dedicated to you, the creative. If you're looking for motivation, inspiration, and advice while at home, at work, or on your daily commute, then this show is for you. Each episode brings you a successful creative, whether that's an author, musician, entrepreneur, performer, designer, or thought leader. They'll share with you their journey, their successes, their failures, their creative process, and much, much more. You'll find show notes for this episode, as well as free training on creativity, over at jamestaylor.me. Enjoy this episode. Hey there, it's James Taylor, and I'm delighted today to have on the show David Wood. After a life as a consulting actuary to Fortune 100 companies on Park Avenue, David Wood built the world's largest coaching business, becoming number one on Google for life coaching and serving huge audiences worldwide. He now coaches high-performing executives, entrepreneurs, teams, and even prison inmates to create amazing results and a deep connection, one tough conversation at a time, which we're going to learn about. So David, welcome onto the show.
Thank you, James. Happy to be here.
So share with us what's happening in your world at the moment.
Whoa, what a question. I caught up with a friend recently and I thought, how do I summarize my life in like 30 seconds or a minute? I like to be transparent. I like to speak truth. So let me go for it. There's some good stuff and there are some challenges. And the challenges I've identified, one is like a health energy issue. Another one is business issue. I've been back at building this business for 2 years and it's going well and I want to really crank it. And then the third one is I've just noticed this recently. I'm not satisfied with how I'm spending my leisure time. Like winding, and I bet a lot of listeners can relate to this. Winding down from the day using screen time is suspect. So I'm looking for ways that I can more enjoy my downtime. So that's what I'm working on in the challenge area. And then on the upside, my puppy is amazing. Living in Boulder, Colorado is just a beautiful location. I've got wonderful friends and, expanding my social life as we create events for people to come together and really connect. So, and I just got back from Ezra Firestone's Blue Ribbon Mastermind and in Florida and speaking to that. So there's a lot of good stuff. And as with most people, there's a mix.
Yeah. So you've lived in different parts of the world as well. I know we've had you on the show before. At that point, I think you were just leaving Bali, or you spent a lot of time in Bali. So as you're building a coaching business, I guess this is one of the interesting things about that business is you can kind of do that from anywhere in the world.
Yeah. And that's like, I started coaching back in 1998 and, I started having local clients, but I went into the internet. I'm a geek and I became number one on Google for life coaching. And so I was getting people from around the world. So very quickly it became a phone-based, we didn't have video working well back then. It became a phone-based business. And so basically for the last 20 years, I've had the privilege of being able to choose where I want to live anywhere in the world.
So one of the interesting things I find about coaching is one of those roles or those jobs that's quite easy to get into if you have expertise in a particular area. Obviously there's different types of coaching: life coaching, business coaching, spiritual coaching, all different types of coaching. But there seems to be very few people who are able to not just make a lifestyle business but actually to grow it into a much larger thing as well. And you mentioned people, Ezra Firestone and other people, I know you're parts of things like the Transformational Leadership Council, and they have some kind of these kind of coaches with huge kind of followings and have built huge businesses. What are the differences that you notice between those coaches out there who are just focused on really maybe working with a small number of clients, and those ones are really build quite an exponential business from it?
No one's ever asked me that before. What a great question. Firstly, let me double click on what you said. It's true. There's so many coaches. If I had to estimate, out of all the people who try coaching or start a coaching business, I would say easily less than 10% are actually making, say over $60,000 a year, and fully self-sufficient. I would say less than 10% is my guess, because any small business, any business is hard to get it working. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And then as you pointed out, there's another level, the people who become uber successful, maybe that's 0.1% of coaches. Now, what is the difference? Boy, what a great question. I think one difference is persistence, crazy persistence. It's so easy to get demoralized and go, all right, this is not working. I'm going to pivot. I'm going to shift to something else. For example, I came back from Bali. I left Bali a couple of years ago, and I've been reinventing myself as a coach and kind of starting from scratch. I let my email list of 150,000 people go, and it's a slow road, even with all of my contacts. It's been 2 years building up my reputation again, letting people know this is what I'm doing, branding, being clear on the problem I solve for people. It seems like a long, slow process, and that's even with everything that I know. So persistence would be one of the bigger things. If you're willing to persist, then after 2 years or 5 years or even 10 years, if you're slow, you're going to get better. You'll get really good at your niche, and people will know about you, and they'll start saying, go to this guy or this gal, because they're the one you speak to for this.
And so that's the kind of 0.1% of the coaches out there who have kind of had that persistence, they've built that kind of business. I'm going to drill down even further on it. So that I guess maybe even that's the 0.1% of the 0.1%, but those who've not just built a successful coaching business, but are also, because you spend a lot of time up close with many of these people, that are happy and contented and enjoying their lives. And it's not just about the quantity of their bank balance, but also about the quality of their life. What are those people doing differently?
You know, particularly, you mentioned the Transformational Leadership Council, which, for people who don't know, was started by Jack Canfield from Chicken Soup and John Gray from Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, Marcy Shimoff for Happy for No Reason, speaking about happiness. And they said, we need a place to get together where we can recharge and support each other as family. And that's a good example, a good sample group, because they tend to have good energy and to be generally very happy. I interviewed for my podcast Chris Atwood from the Passion Test, because he's one of the happiest people I know. He just loves his life, and he almost can't find a problem. If there's any tough conversation or anything awkward, he's excited. He's like, oh, I'm going to learn something. Let me dive into it. And I did 2 podcast episodes with him. No, we ended up publishing 1, but it was about how to be truly happy. And one of his things was just leaning into what's happening as an exciting learning experience instead of thinking it's wrong. And I challenged him. I said, Chris, look, I've been tired for 12 years. I got health issues that I haven't been able to resolve. How can I be happy about that? And he really got in there with me, and he said, what are you believing? What are the thoughts that are going through your head? And we identified that I was believing that I shouldn't be tired. I should have energy, that I need to be working. And he challenged it all. And he was right. It's like, I could go 5 years without working if I needed to. I've got the financial resources if I had to. And yet my mind is telling me, this is wrong. You have to have energy. And so he and I are big fans of Byron Katie. She's a special teacher in our lives. So we got to really riff on that. But, but I don't claim to be happy all the time either. I don't want to pretend that. I know people often look at people who are successful and they go, oh, wow, their life is perfect. My life is not perfect. I'm privileged. I'm so privileged that I get to live where I do and have the friends I do and have the lifestyle I do, but I still struggle. And there are days that I just feel down and I don't want to do anything. So my life is a work in progress. I don't want anyone to make an assumption that, like right now, I feel happy talking to you. And then you asked me before the interview, how's your life? I said, it's mixed this year. It's been mixed. I got challenges that I'm working on, and I've got some amazing things that I'm celebrating.
Now, one of the things I always think about life coaches when I meet friends who I would class as really great life coaches is the thing I'm always amazed with them. And I kind of coach, the coaching that I do, is more around creativity, and it's more around
Right.
working with speakers. And so that tends to be a little bit more on the business side, just kind of different from the life coaching. And I was having a conversation with someone the other day about, we were talking about their job as a life coach. And I said to them, I don't think I could do that job, because you have to give so much of yourself in terms of personally and invest so much in building that and working with that person. I think I could possibly feel quite drained at the end. So you're someone that's actually managed to build a very successful life coaching business, and you're now working on this kind of tough conversations project that we'll talk about in a moment. But I'm wondering for any advice that you have there, maybe for the newbie coaches out there. How do you ensure that when you're working with people and you're going to often having those tough conversations, that you're able to keep something in order, that whether it's a freshness, and you don't sometimes get worn down, and
Right.
and
Right.
I guess it's becoming overly attached to that other person's challenges that you're trying to help them with.
Wow, I find this a fascinating question. Firstly, let me clarify, I coach on life and business. So that seems to be the sweet spot for me. If people want just business coaching, they should probably find someone who does just that. If they want just life coaching, they should find someone who does just that. The people who come to me tend to want someone who can hold space for both. And they want someone who understands the intertwining that tends to happen. It's been said that 80% of business coaching is life coaching, because you have to deal with who the person is, you have to deal with their personality, you have to deal with their fears and their concerns of how they're showing up at work and what holds them back from leadership. So there's an intertwining that seems to happen. I find it interesting that you suggest that life coaching might potentially be draining,
Yeah,
but
I find that a little bit just on the more of the coaching I've done in the past. I would say especially with on creative types with musicians, where you think musicians are all of a kind, let's say, with coaching. But I found working with the singer songwriters who that was more challenging, because there's something more emotional kind of going into them. I think by the very nature of the job that they chose,
okay.
as opposed to someone that's saying, I just want to get gigs on stages all around the world. That seems like that's kind of more in the business. But as you say, your sweet spot is being able to hold in both of those places and look at the holistic nature of someone's life and work.
Yeah, and I don't find the personal draining. I'm energized. I'm inspired when I see someone tap into their courage. If someone's talking to me about how their son's not talking to them, or their son doesn't want any advice from them, I get inspired. I'm like, well, let's look at what would happen. How cool would it be if you can transform your relationship with your son? So I find that kind of stuff energizing. What's draining for me is if I feel like I can't make an impact on someone, and that's their life or their business. And I have had a client last year who I said, I don't think I have the skill to crack you open. You've got an embedded, entrenched pattern that's going on that has you complaining about the world, and I can't crack it.
Mm.
I recommend therapy, or I sent him to a course, which did do something, but I'm like, I can't do it. And I just said no last week to someone who reached out and said, we worked before together for a while, I'd like to try it again. And I said, I remember you not taking action.
Ah.
I remember you consistently, week after week after week, talking a big game, but not doing anything. And that's frustrating for me. I don't think I have the skills to actually break you out of that pattern. So I have to say no. So that's one way that I ensure that I'm not drained. And the other way is that I specifically target in my marketing high performers, high achievers. And these are anyone who identifies as someone who gets a lot done and they're successful in a number of areas. They might have one challenge area or two challenge areas, but their life's generally going pretty well. And they're looking at, how do I do even better? So that's not draining for me. That's exciting because I'm dealing with competent, smart people, and we riff on a bunch of stuff and I give them some ideas they hadn't thought of and off they go. That's not draining at all for me.
So the work you're doing a lot, I know now, is this idea of tough conversations, both coaching kind of individuals, but also there's a whole business side to this as well, in terms of companies where their employees, executives are having to have those tough conversations. So what was it about this area and helping people through dealing with tough conversations and navigating that you felt very strongly about, you wanted to kind of help and provide some value in the world on?
I love that question. So one reason is people are terrible at it. We're humans. We're just terrible at the tough conversations. That's why we call them tough. They're the ones that we don't really want to have. They're the ones we're not sure how to have. The reason we don't have them is because we're worried it might go off the rails. The person might get offended. They might get upset. They might start attacking me. I might lose my job. So we're not very good at it. Secondly, a lot of people aren't even aware that there are a bunch of opportunities out there, conversation opportunities that might be a little awkward, but might generate amazing results. So I want to increase awareness for that. And the third thing, and I think this overlaps, it's not really about tough conversations. It's about speaking up. It's about having agency and you speaking your truth. Firstly, identifying, what is it that's going on with me? What is it I really want to say to my wife or say to my boss or say to this coworker who's bugging me? What is my truth? Because most people they're not even clear. Once you can get clear on the truth, I can help you find a way to say it in a gentle way and yet powerful way so that the other person can hear it and you can actually transform the relationship. So that opens up a whole world of personal growth where you get to like yourself more, you get to be braver, you get to demonstrate leadership skills by speaking up and affecting the situation at work or at home. And I'm an evangelist for personal growth and awareness. So it's the perfect niche for me. Let's identify our own truth. Let's find ways to speak up. And that may lead to a tough conversation, which we'll have and we'll handle. Or sometimes it'll be an easy conversation. It's just you needed to find the clarity so that you knew what you wanted to say.
So one thing is, you said there about finding, speaking your truth, finding that truth, getting that clarity and what you actually want to say. As you work with different clients on this tough conversations, where does much of this reticence about having tough conversations come from? Is it just simply a fear, fear of rejection, or fear of conflict, or is there something about maybe some people who feel that they want to it's not, maybe culturally it's not the done thing to to have those conversations? When you're working with all these clients, what are the kind of repeating patterns, the repeating things that you hear that stop people from having those conversations?
Yeah, there are a number of things, and you hit on some of them. The first one is the mind won't even show you your tough conversations or your truth often. It'll sweep it under the carpet because we don't want things to be awkward. So that's the first challenge, is we don't even know who we've got issues with and what those conversations could look like. Secondly, if we did identify that, I don't want to feel awkward. I don't want to feel uncomfortable. We're creatures of comfort. It's second, and then another reason is fear of loss. if I have this conversation with my boss about a pay rise, my boss might give me a hard time. My boss might think that I'm greedy. My landlord right now wants me to pay for some of the garbage service, and part of the deal was that utilities are included. So that's an example of a micro truth or a micro tough conversation. Do I just roll over and say, okay, because I want a good relationship with my landlord and I do hope that they renew the lease? Or do I speak up and say, that kind of was included here, let's have a conversation about it. I might lose something. They might get offended and actually not renew the lease if they think I'm nickel and diming them. So fear of loss and fear of discomfort are two of the biggest reasons that I think we avoid speaking our truth. And we also most of us don't know how to have the conversation. We don't know how to do it. Like, how do I bring it up in a diplomatic, friendly way with the landlord? How do I say to my partner, I broke an agreement and I'm sorry, I screwed up? Or even, let's go to the extreme, I cheated 5 years ago and I want to confess and I want to make it right. I want to earn back your trust. If we don't know how to have the conversation, it makes sense that we're not going to have it because we're scared. Fortunately, I have developed a 4-step blueprint that comes with a worksheet. So the worksheet will give you the clarity you need. What am I afraid of here? What is my hope? Like, what's the upside that could come out of this conversation? And you get clarity on it, that's going to change your whole approach to it. Then there are 4 steps in the blueprint, and you can actually fill in the answers and then take them with you to the conversation and say, I wrote down some talking points because I wanted to make sure that I cover everything. You don't have to, pretend that you're going to do it all off the top of your head. So that's a game changer. And if you like, we can give that away to your listeners at the end of the show.
Wonderful. We'll put a link here for that so people can get that 4-step blueprint. And I'm just wondering on that. Yeah, I remember someone telling me many years ago, you should do something every day that scares you. Right. Kind of building a muscle and just stretching that muscle every day. So are there is it having these kind of conversations, is that kind of similar thing? Should you almost try and put yourself out there to try and have those, maybe one of those little conversations? It doesn't have to be a big thing, obviously, whether you want a raise or something, but just trying to have those conversations just as a way of kind of building up that muscle that's maybe become a little bit flabby over the years.
Well, I'm biased, right? I'm biased towards growth. I think growth is good. I want more self-awareness. I want more confidence, and I want deeper connection with people. And I have learned that speaking up, speaking my truth generally leads to all of those things. So I have faith and I have belief in it. I'm willing to be uncomfortable in order to get those results. And I like to use the metaphor of a cold shower. It's becoming more and more popular these days with the Wim Hof method, getting in ice cold baths, or even just doing a cold shower to shock the system. It's super uncomfortable, but so that you can then grow and your body responds. So I'm biased. I'm always going to say, yes, I think you should practice and exercise that muscle. And you get to choose the pace at which you want to go. You don't have to do the biggest conversations first. For example, this might scare some people, but some of the scariest ones I've had are confessing to a crime. When I was younger, I did something that I knew was wrong, but I didn't know it was illegal. I found out later I could go to jail for this. And I ended up tracking down the person involved and confessing and saying, this is what I did way back. I'm so sorry. How can I make it right? And I could have gone to jail if they wanted me to. Turns out there wasn't much impact on them. And they said, actually, I'm fine. We're good. I was like, thank God. Also, when I was 18, I cheated on my first partner. One of the worst mistakes I ever made. And I confessed the next day. And she broke up with me. I ended up repairing that relationship and we got married. But I could have lost that relationship forever. I'm not saying go in with the big ones to start with. I'm saying get a piece of paper and a pen and start writing down anybody that you don't feel great with, anything that you might be holding back that you haven't expressed. If you died today, what wouldn't you have said to your boss? What haven't you said to your partner or to your kids or your friends or your parents? What haven't you said to people you're annoyed with? You don't have to go and say all these things, but reveal them to yourself. And then go and circle a few of the easier ones. And you might say, each day or every Monday, I'm going to just take on one of these. I'm going to call up and say, you know what? Here's something that's been a bit awkward for me, and I didn't even realize it for a while that I needed to say something, but can we have a conversation for 5 or 10 minutes? I'd like to feel closer to you. And I think this might do it, even though it might be a little awkward.
Beautiful.
That's, by the way, that's step one of the 4-step blueprint, is you ask permission. And so do it with the easy ones and build up your muscle. Also, it was suggested to me that you practice with your friends and coworkers, not with your family. Your family's harder. So you do it where the stakes are a bit lower, and then you move up to, say, your parents or your romantic partner, because that's, that can be the scariest.
And as you're speaking, obviously, you know that I speak a lot on innovation and artificial intelligence. And I'm already in the back of my head, I'm thinking, how cool would it be to have an AI who could take on that role of being that thing you have that kind of conversation with, someone who's going to kind of stress you. So there's no, actually initially having it with another kind of human being, but you can try out and get comfortable with it as well.
James, I love that.
We maybe just invented a new tool, the Tough Conversations AI. If someone's listening out there, there's an AI programmer.
It's a coach, Tough Conversations role play coach.
A role play coach.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Right now, your AI is me. I actually run a free weekly call. It's a Zoom call where people come in and they bring their tough conversation or their truth, and or they're not even sure. So we spend the first 5 minutes zeroing in on, here's your truth. And then we role play it, and they get to practice it, and then they can go out into the world and do it for real life. But I've just started learning Flutter and Dart so that I could program my next app. And I would love to come up with something where you could kind of say something and then the AI would respond. In fact, you could prep it. Here are the scary things that I'm worried I'm going to hear. And so you could line up the answers in advance, and then you say what you need to say from your worksheet, which you've already downloaded. And then the AI responds as you've programmed it to. It wouldn't even have to be intelligent.
Very cool. So you've been on the show before, and so I'm not going to ask you some of the things I've asked you before about some of your favorite resources and books and music, because we're going to put the link to the previous episode that you were on the show, so people can go and check out that episode with David that we did a little while ago. But I do want to ask you one question. I actually asked you before on the show, because you're in a different place in your life and doing different things now. I want you to imagine that you woke up tomorrow morning and you're going to have to start from scratch. So that you're in there in lovely Colorado, and you've got all the tools of your trade, all the knowledge you've acquired over the years, but no one knows you and you know no one. What would you do? How would you restart? And especially in light of what you were just saying earlier about you're almost going through this process. You've been going through this process.
Yeah, well, you took away one, because I kind of did restart 2 years ago, but I had my network. I had people who know me, and I had relationships. So let's say we take that away. How would I start? I think one of the best ways, firstly, I would pick a niche, right? Pick a group of people who can pay me and who I'd like to work with. Pick a big problem that they have. And then I would start to get good at solving that problem. And you can just read the top 3 books on any industry, and you're going to know more than 95, 98% of people about that topic. So already you're able to help people. And then if I don't know one, so that I can't actually call all my friends and say, this is what I'm offering, I would identify 10 leaders in that industry. Who are the top 10 people who are solving that problem for this target market? Who have got the biggest names? And I would reach out and try and find a way to enroll them in me interviewing them. I'll say, let me interview you. I'll give you a copy of the interview for free. You can share it with your list or not. We'll have a great conversation, and I'll really uncover everything you've learned over your lifetime about this. And then once you've interviewed these 10 people, you're now an expert, not just because you've read the top 3 books, but now you've interviewed 10 leaders in the industry. And maybe you can't get the biggest names first, right? You get people at the lower end of the ladder, but then you leverage that. Who else do you know? And then you leverage that and you work up the ladder until you get one decent name. I mean, for example, I've been at this a long time, but Jack Canfield wrote the foreword to my book. I shamelessly drop Jack's name wherever I can, and people are like, oh, all right, well, maybe I could be on your podcast as well. So you work up the ladder. Once you got those 10 interviews, you're an expert by virtue of the fact that you've interviewed 10 experts. Mm. That's a classic model people use. They go and write a book and say, I just interviewed the best of the best. Vishen Lakhiani from Mind Valley did that. I interviewed all the best of the best, and now I'm an expert because I talked to those people. The other thing you might get, well, now you've got a product. You got a product of 10 interviews, which you might sell, and you may be able to enroll some of those experts in sharing the interview. So if they do share it, if they do send it to their list, if they do post it on social media, then I would try and get a link back to my website and harvest those leads, get those email addresses. So I start to build up my small following bit by bit by bit, by leveraging the networks that those experts have. That's one of the most powerful models I've ever heard of.
So we're going to have a link to your blueprint here. And where's the best place for people to go if they want to just learn a little bit more about you? You mentioned that the podcast and other things you're involved in just now. Where should they go and find that? Yeah,
you can go to playforreal.life. Playforreal.life. And you can join my podcast, Tough Conversations with David Wood. You can download the 4-step blueprint. And also, I would invite listeners, if something in this call resonated with you and you really want your life and business or career to be better, then see if you qualify for a discovery session. If you qualify, I don't charge you for it because it's how I find the right people to work with long term. And I'd love to help you create a life and business plan.
Well, David, thank you so much for coming on today, talking about tough conversations and how to build that muscle. I wish you great success in everything you're doing, and then hopefully we'll be sharing a stage together in the future.
Thanks, mate. And maybe you and I will work on an AI app.
keep your eye out for that now. If you're interested in living a more creative life, then I'd love to invite you to join me as I share some of the most successful strategies and techniques that high-performing creatives use. I put them all together in a free downloadable ebook that you can get by going to jamestaylor.me. That's jamestaylor.me to get your free downloadable ebook on creativity.